Hello and welcome to a web edition of Real Ones. I'm Logan Murdoch. That is Howard Beck. We are here to discuss if your favorite playoff team is real or fake. And this is the Denver Nuggets edition. Howard, when I think about the Denver Nuggets, I think about a team that has a chance to go on a dynastic run, maybe a Spursian-like run, right? And I think when you think about the head of the snake in that way, it is Nikola Jokic. He is the Tim Duncan of this team. He is the all-world center. It seemed like last year with the finals, it kind of validated him in the pantheon of all-time big men. What would a deep finals run do for a guy like Jokic, another deep finals run do for a guy like him going into this postseason?
So, Logan, we know he already has the championship ring, the finals MVP, the 2 regular season MVPs. He may be headed soon for a 3rd MVP in 4 seasons in the regular season here. So, like, the resume, the trophy case is already pretty hefty in his favor, and he's got many years to go in this league. But I thought about this in terms of where do you rank in the modern era among superstars, right? So you think about LeBron and Steph are the standard bearers right now, but they're toward the end of their careers. They've got 4 rings each. Durant's got 2. Kawhi Leonard's got 2. That's the, like, not Jokic's peer group, but those are the guys he's following. So that's, if you talk about him in a historical perspective, you're thinking at a minimum, you want to try to match the guys who you came in against, the superstars who defined the league. If you want to even go just since the Bulls era ended in the late 90s, Kobe got 5, Duncan got 5, Shaq has 4 rings, Dwayne Wade 3. In this era, I feel like Jokic is more going up against like Giannis, who has 1, like Jokic. Or you've got like, Embiid and Luka coming on your heels, or Shea, or any other stars. So if you want to distinguish yourself in this era, got to go get the 2nd championship at least. Now you're 1 ahead of Giannis, and you're 2-0 on like Luka and Embiid. So I kind of think about it in that way. But listen, if he gets his 3rd MVP in the regular season here, he's already going to join an elite group that includes Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Moses Malone, Bird, Magic, MJ, and LeBron. So Jokic is already well on his way to establishing himself as an all-timer. But yeah, winning 2 in a row, which is rare, would go a long way.
Well, it's interesting because, like I said before, to start this segment, we kind of undervalue how big that first title is for a guy like Jokic, where it does unlock these things. Because at a point in time, he was the guy that got the great stats. He was the guy that could pass very well, and I think the Nuggets and him really learned how to win on a national scale last year, just in the way that and you could see that this season, throughout the season, just in the calmness down the stretch of how they play. They never really seem to be out of games, and they have that championship fairy dust that you kind of get, that most teams get in this situation when they win a title, where they do have that sense of calmness and that sense of purpose when they are on the basketball floor. How do you feel with we talk about the Jokic? They have Aaron Gordon, they have Marco Porter Jr., they have Jamal Murray. They have a really good starting cast, but they're near the bottom of the league standings in bench scoring. That was their Achilles heel throughout this season and even throughout their run in general. Bruce Brown is no longer on the roster. How much do you think that their depth will play a factor in these playoffs? When, because personally, I think it's a little bit overblown when you talk about depth. I think if you have a good lineup and a good stretch, you can go 7 deep. Yeah. But how important is depth for this team as they try to defend their title?
In the NBA, depth really matters in the regular season, right? Because like guys are going to get banged up, and you don't want to overtax guys, and so like you want to have. If you've got 8, 9, 10 or more playable guys and can keep guys fresh, like that's important. In the playoffs, yeah, assuming health, everybody plays like a 7-man rotation. Like maybe you go 7.5, but games are more spaced out. So I don't really put a lot into the idea that depth is going to be critical to the Nuggets. They've played very well this season without Bruce Brown and Jeff Green. They're 6th and 7th guys from the championship run. And besides that, like this is really a team that's so much about how seamlessly their starting 5 fits together. And then, you're going to get a little bit of Reggie Jackson, who's fit in very well with them this season. Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Justin Holiday, whoever you mix and match in there, they're fine. Like, they're always fine as long as Jokic is on his game, right? Everything else works no matter who they put out there if he's on. And during the moments in the game where he's off the court, do the numbers tell us that they generally sag a bit? Yeah, but Jokic gives them such an advantage in the minutes that he's on the court that it ultimately doesn't matter.
Who is the team in the Western Conference that maybe gives you pause when it comes to the Nuggets that, the Nuggets probably should watch out for this team? Because I'm looking around and I'm canvassing around the Western Conference and I just do not see it.
I don't either, Logan, in the sense that, like, no other team is as well constructed as they are, right? And no one else is proven. And I don't just mean championships, right? That's a little bit too high of a bar. But, like, the Clippers at their best are really good, but sometimes they're not for long stretches. And you wonder, like, okay, the talent's there, but I don't see the consistency. The Pelicans are really stout and really deep, but they have no track record to speak of. The Thunder have no track record to speak of. The Timberwolves have been a first round out, and so they have no track record to speak of. Like, there's nobody you look at unless you're going to say, well, what if it's the Lakers? And, they swept the Lakers in the conference finals last spring.
Yeah.
There's no one team that you think either matchup-wise or experience-wise has the advantage, Logan. But I do think we are in a time when if you stumble in this era of the NBA, in this particular frame of time, the parity is so great that, I think one of those teams I just listed could catch them napping, could actually beat them in a 7-game series, but they got to have help from the Nuggets. And the one thing we know about the Nuggets, they don't help you. They don't make mistakes. They do not shoot themselves in the foot. So I tend to think that it's probably the Nuggets again winning the West, but I do think a lot of these other teams have the talent to beat them if they are as precise and consistent as the Nuggets generally are.
I think the thing with the Nuggets is only way I see that them not getting out of the Western Conference is if there's an injury to Murray or if there's an injury to one of their core starters, which obviously it's the playoffs. That is something that can happen. But then you see it when the thing that is tough when Murray or Michael Porter is out is that people can just sit on in the paint. They can camp out in the paint and they can just. We saw that with the Golden State Warriors a couple years ago, where all they did was just sag off on Jokic, just sag off of shooters, and they were just fine. And they won that series pretty handily. I do think that this Nuggets team was obviously better than 2 years ago. They obviously have Murray back into the fold, but that's something to look at because when you start talking about depth, that's what we're talking about. If it has to go perfectly for this team to continue win health-wise, they have to be a perfect group in that way. Is there an inevitability to this team's dominance? Are they a team that, remember the Spurs of the early 2000s where if you get down, no matter what type of game it was, you kind of see this with championship teams, right? You saw that with the Bulls. You saw that even with the Lakers, where down the stretch of playoff games, the Warriors are a good example, where there was inevitability to what their dominance will be down the stretch. Are the Nuggets starting to develop that?
To an extent, yes, right? As we were just talking about, they don't shoot themselves in the foot. They don't make critical mistakes down the stretch of a game. So if you're in a tight fourth quarter against the Nuggets, I'm going to bet on the Nuggets every time there because Jokic is not going to allow them to get out of what they do best. They know exactly who they are. That starting five has been together for a couple of years now. And there's a clear kind of structure there. And other teams often miss that, right? Like the Suns have all these stars, but there doesn't seem to be any real structure or the right kind of chemistry there that brings out the best in all of them at the same time. I don't think there's an inevitability to the Nuggets in the way that we once thought about, say, the Durant Curry Warriors or the Spurs teams that you referred to or the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, because this is not a super team, right? This is not LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. This is not KD and Curry. This is Jokic and a perfectly orchestrated ensemble around him. Like, no disrespect to Jamal Murray, who probably should have made an All-NBA or All-Star team by now, but he hasn't. He has not made either one of those. They don't have the classic second star that you usually have, much less a super team. And because of that, I feel like, no, they're not at the same level of dominance as some of the champions we've talked about in other eras. But that, that's fine. We are in an era of ensembles, right? Giannis won with an ensemble, not a super team. Kawhi Leonard won in Toronto with an ensemble, not a super team. Even the Warriors' most recent title was Steph and an ensemble. And that's what Jokic and the Nuggets are right now. And that's fine. But it does mean you have maybe a little less margin for error, because if for some reason Jokic had a bad game, you're that much more vulnerable because you don't have that second superstar, that second top 10, top 15 type player. So no, not an era of inevitability, but still the clear favorite.
All right, Howard, it's time for the main event. Are the Nuggets real or fake?
I think we could pretty well safely conclude they are real. Yes.
The Nuggets are too real, and they might be too real for the NBA going forward. We'll see what happens, but the Nuggets are the clear favorite out of the West.